Hey everyone, in this video we are going to be breaking down a very inspiring passage from the book of Psalms, which is Psalm 145 verses 10 to 13, where King David said, "All thy works shall praise thee, O Lord, and thy saints shall bless thee. They shall speak of the glory of thy kingdom and talk of thy power, to make known to the sons of men his mighty acts and the glorious majesty of his kingdom. Thy kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and thy dominion endureth throughout all generations." If you look at the kingdom of David in history, you'll be able to see that it was indeed a glorious kingdom. Glorious in the sense that people were coming from all over the world to see the riches and the wisdom and everything that was happening in the kingdom. Particularly in the days of Solomon, everyone wanted to hear his wisdom and his riches and the palaces and the infrastructure and every fantastic thing that was going on. If you read 1 Kings chapter 4, verses 31 to 34, even the Queen of Sheba came from where she was just so that she could hear the wisdom of Solomon in 1 Kings chapter 10. So it was a glorious kingdom and everybody flocked to it. So the kingdom of David is a physical way of understanding what that text means. And it became prophetic of the kingdom of God because David himself is prophetic of Jesus Christ. If you read Luke chapter 1 verses 32 to 33, Jeremiah chapter 23 verses 5 and 6, and many other passages across the scriptures. And the Bible told us that there would be a time in history called the last days when this kingdom would be set up. If you read Isaiah chapter 2 verse 2, Isaiah the prophet also said, "And it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and it shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations will flow onto it." That phrase, "all nations will flow onto it," is what happened physically with David, and it was also prophesied to happen with the kingdom. Now, what is this kingdom exactly? Well, the Bible tells us that the kingdom of God is a government that is headed by Jesus Christ and the apostles. Jesus Christ is the king, which is why the psalmist said in Psalm 2 verse 6, "Yet have I set my king upon my holy hill of Zion." And in Isaiah chapter 32 verse 1, Isaiah the prophet said, "Behold, a king shall reign in righteousness, and princes shall rule in judgment." And if you read Zechariah chapter 9 verses 9 to 14, you see the same thing. And Jesus Christ, like any leader in this world, also has his cabinet members, the apostles. If you read Luke chapter 12 verse 32, Jesus Christ told them that it was his Father's good pleasure to give them the kingdom. And in Luke chapter 22 verses 28 to 30, Jesus Christ spoke to them saying, "Ye are they which have continued with me in my temptations, and I appoint unto you a kingdom as my Father hath appointed unto me, that ye may eat and drink at my table of my kingdom, and sit on thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel." So they, that is Jesus Christ and the apostles, they lead the kingdom of God. And the Bible tells us that the kingdom of God is what would bring peace and prosperity to the world, just as it was the kingdom of David that brought riches and glory and honor and security to the people of Israel at that time. If you read Isaiah chapter 33 verses 19 and 20, you see how Isaiah the prophet was prophesying about the peace that would come to the world, to Zion, as a result of the kingdom of God being established and God's prophecies fulfilling. And if you read 1 Corinthians chapter 15 verses 24 to 28, you see that Jesus Christ as king would subdue all of God's enemies. And if you read the original text we're breaking down, when the psalmist said, "All thy saints shall bless thee," the saints are the children of God, both the apostles and we as Christians who decide to worship God. If we want God's promises to fulfill, if we want the Lord's Prayer to be answered, if you read Matthew chapter 6 verses 9 and 10, then by the time we see God's enemies being defeated, then we will rejoice because we know that God has come for us. If you read Revelation chapter 19 verses 1 and 2, you see people rejoicing that Jesus Christ has defeated his enemies and he's gaining victory over all his foes. And the Bible tells us that this will continue until God has gained victory over all his enemies, and the kingdom will stand forever. That is, righteousness will prevail in this world from generation to generation, as Daniel prophesied. And in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. And the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. And the great part is that God has sent out people to announce the fact that Jesus Christ has returned, and that now the kingdom is growing and God's promises are fulfilling. If you read Isaiah chapter 52 verse 7, you see that was prophesied. How beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of him that bringeth good tidings, that publisheth peace, that bringeth good tidings of good, that publisheth salvation, that saith unto Zion, thy God reigneth. That phrase, that God reigneth, is another way of saying that the kingdom of God has been established, that his prophecies are now fulfilling. And the Bible tells us that just as the kingdom of David, where everybody was flocking to it as a result of the glory and the honor, the kingdom of God will also have people all over the world flocking to it. Its ideals of peace and freedom. People are beginning to grow into those ideas. People are beginning to fight for those ideas now, and people are rejecting the ways of the past. It's in fulfillment of Isaiah chapter 60 verses 1 to 3 and verses 13 and 14, where Isaiah the prophet said, arise, shine, for thy light is come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. For behold, the darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness the people. But the Lord shall arise upon thee, and his glory shall be seen upon thee. And the Gentiles shall come to thy light, and kings to the brightness of thy rising. And then from verse 13 he said, the glory of Lebanon shall come unto thee, the fir tree, the pine tree, and the box together, to beautify the place of my sanctuary, and I will make the place of my feet glorious. What Isaiah the prophet meant by the place of my feet, if you go to Isaiah chapter 66 verse 1, you see God saying, the heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. The earth is where God places his feet, which is not a physical thing. Rather, it's that just as people glorify him in heaven, if you read Revelation chapter 4 verse 11, people also glorify him on earth as well by giving praise to his name and living righteously. And then in verse 14 he said, the sons also of them that afflicted thee shall come bending unto thee, and they that despise thee shall bow themselves down at the soles of thy feet, and they shall call thee the city of the Lord, the Zion of the Holy One of Israel. Thus, in summary, the kingdom of God is a government headed by Jesus Christ and the apostles, which is prophesied to take control over the whole world and make righteousness prevail. That is what David was inspired to talk about in Psalm 145, verses 10 to 13, which once again reads, all thy works shall praise thee, O Lord, and thy saints shall bless thee. They shall speak of the glory of thy kingdom and talk of thy power, to make known to the sons of men his mighty acts and the glorious majesty of his kingdom. Thy kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and thy dominion endureth throughout all generations. I'm very happy that I was able to make this video, and if you guys enjoyed it, then I would appreciate if you click the like button and also the subscribe button. And if you want to know when I come back with more verse breakdowns just like this, then you can click the notification bell. Have a good day, everyone, and God bless you.